Chapter 4. 5 years later. Here we have the second appearance of Jerry Cruncher, who had delivered the message to Mr. Lorry, but now as a messenger at Tilson's bank. One of the clerks at the bank sent Jerry with a note for Mr. Lorry, but this time at the court. The prisoner, whose name was Charles Darnay, was accused of treason, which was the worst crime of all. He was accused of being a spy or working for the French king against England. Next to the prisoner's lawyer, there was another man in a wig, who kept his hands in his pockets and kept staring at the ceiling. The prosecutor made a speech. He said that Darnay had been found with lists of the king's army. The first witness was John Barsad, who said exactly the same as the story of the prosecutor. Then John Barsad was proved to be lying because he was a gambler and had been in debtor's prison. The second witness was the prisoner's servant, Roger Clay, who had worked for Darnay for 4 years. He said that he had seen Darnay showing lists to a man traveling to France. But again, the defense lawyer proved that Clay was a thief and had known Barsad for many years. Mr. Lorry, Dr. Manet, and Lucy Manet were the three other witnesses. They said they had met the prisoner on a boat returning from France. Unfortunately, Lucy said that she had seen Darnay giving papers to two French gentlemen who were with him, and that Darnay had told her he was traveling under a false name because his work was difficult and dangerous. And now, listen to part of the movie.
State your business. I'm a messenger. Mr. Lorry sent for me. Enter. What's he charged with, Mr. Lorry?
Treason.
Treason, eh? That's a hanging offence or worse.
I'm afraid it is, Jerry.
Order. Order in the court.
We have before us the case of the Crown versus Charles Darnay. Mr. Attorney General, please read the charges against the prisoner.
Prisoner is charged with treason against His Majesty the King, in that he has passed secret information listing the strength of the forces that His Majesty had intended to send to America.
Silence! Silence in this court.
The Crown seeks to prove the case against Charles Darnay with the evidence we now lay before you. Call the first witness.
Call John Barsad.
John Barsad, you were Mr. Darnay's servant, were you not?
Companion, sir.
And is it not true that you followed your patriotic duty when you found certain documents in the prisoner's possession?
Yes, sir. I reported it to your office.
What were those documents?
Troop lists, sir.
I believe that you had occasion to travel with the prisoner to coastal areas where the troops were billeted whilst awaiting. Your witness, Mr. Stryver.
Mr. Barsad, have you ever been a spy?
No.
How do you make your living?
From my property.
Did you inherit it?
Yes.
From a relation?
Yes.
Ever been in prison?
Never.
My lord, I object to Mr. Stryver's line of questioning. It has no relevance to this case.
Your Worship, if I may continue, I will demonstrate that this witness is not the honest, upstanding gentleman that Mr. Attorney General would have us believe. I will show that he has been in the employ of someone who wishes to discredit Mr. Darnay.
Continue, Mr. Stryver.
Have you ever been in prison?
No.
Not even in the debtor's prison?
Well, yes.
How many times?
Once or twice.
You, sir, in fact, have been there on 5 or 6 occasions. Have you ever lived by gambling?
No more than any other gentleman?
Have you ever cheated at dice?
Never.
Never been thrown downstairs for cheating?
I once tripped and fell down of my own accord.
Have you ever borrowed money from the prisoner?
Yes.
Did you pay him back?
No.
Have you ever been employed by the government?
Never.
Never been paid for laying traps?
Oh, dear, no.
Are you sure?
Yes.
I put it to you, sir, that you were short of funds and fabricated this evidence in order to raise money.
That is not true.
I'm afraid, sir, we have no way of establishing the truth. But in my opinion, you are an abject liar. I believe there is nothing you could say to further your own end.
Mr. Lorry, on that Friday in November, were you a passenger on the London to Dover coach?
I was.
Look now at the prisoner. Was he not on the same coach?
There were 2 men on the coach. Both were well wrapped against the cold. I did not see their faces.
You returned from France by ship?
Yes, I did.
Did you see the prisoner on this journey?
I saw him board the ship
What time did he arrive at the dock?
at a little after midnight.
So, at the dark hour of midnight, you saw the prisoner sneak aboard.
You try to put words into my mouth. He boarded the ship as an ordinary passenger would.
Were you traveling alone?
I was in the company of Dr. Manette and his daughter.
I should like to call Miss Manette.
Miss Manette, please step forward.
You are Miss Lucille Manette.
Yes, sir.
Have you seen the prisoner before?
Yes, sir. On the ship you referred to.
Was there anyone with him?
Yes, there were 2 other men.
Did you see them whispering between themselves?
I think I may have, but I could hear nothing of what they said.
Did you see the prisoner handing papers to these other men?
It was very dark. I could see very little. But I think he did.
Miss Manette, could you tell the court of your encounter with the prisoner?
Sir, I implore you, do not think badly of Mr. Darnay. He cannot be guilty of this crime.
That is for the court to decide. I ask you again to describe the events of that night.
When the gentleman came
You
on...
mean the prisoner, Miss Manette?
As you wish, sir. The prisoner came on board. You noticed my father was in a weak state of health and offered to assist me in finding shelter for him, away from the wind and rain. As the trip progressed, he confided in me that he was in France on business of a delicate nature that concerned his family. He told me he traveled quite often to France. He always went under an assumed name to avoid being recognized.
I must interrupt you to ask if the prisoner spoke of matters concerning America.
Yes, he did. Oh, heaven help me, he did.
Miss Manette, I am sure the prisoner understands that you must tell the truth.
He spoke of England's quarrel.
And now, read the questions and the answers.